Part 2. Moses and the Mountain of Fire. Shalom to all who continue this journey. If these teachings illuminate your path, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support sustains this work. We now enter the heart of the calling. The reluctant shepherd becomes the prophet of liberation. The burning bush blazes with a presence that transforms without consuming. The staff becomes serpent. The leprous hand heals. The Nile turns to blood. We witness the 10 plagues as cosmic warfare, each strike against Egypt's gods, each demonstration that Yahweh alone commands history. We confront the hard heart of Pharaoh, the mystery of divine sovereignty and human choice, the education of a nation through escalating wonder. We stand at the sea as walls of water rise, as song bursts from terror become triumph, as Miriam leads the women in dance. We receive wisdom from Jethro, the Midianite priest, who teaches Moses that liberation requires organization, that charisma must become structure, that the freed need governance. This is Part 2, Moses and the Mountain of Fire. 10 chunks await: the bush, the signs, the plagues, the hardened heart, the death of firstborn, the night of emergency, the pillar of cloud and fire, the song of the sea, Miriam's prophecy, Jethro's wisdom. From Midian to Sinai, from miracle to administration, from terror to trust. Please subscribe, like, and share. Shalom. The burning bush, theophany, and calling. The burning bush, Shnei Boer Baesh, represents the Exodus narrative's pivotal moment. Divine self-revelation, transforming a fugitive into a prophet. Exodus 3:1-6 describes Moses shepherding Jethro's flocks beyond the wilderness, coming to Horeb, the mountain of God, where the Malach Yahweh, angel messenger of Yahweh, appears in flames from within a bush. The Hebrew Be'er Baesh Vi Hasne Ayenu Ukal, burning with fire yet the bush was not consumed, captures the paradox, divine presence that transforms without destroying, that reveals without consuming the medium. Moses' response, Surah Vereh, I will turn aside and see this great sight, establishes the pattern of prophetic curiosity leading to encounter. The divine prohibition, Al Tikrav Halom, do not come closer, and command to remove shoes, Shal Nealeka, holy ground, echo ancient Near Eastern sanctuary conventions while transforming them. The ground is holy, not by permanent consecration, but by momentary divine presence. The theophany's climax, Ehi Asher, Ehie, I will be what I will be, I am what I am, provides the name that is not merely label but promise, not static identity, but dynamic presence. The Hebrew root, heya, to be, suggests being as becoming, presence as faithfulness. God's self-identification as Elohei Avika, God of your father, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, connects Moses to ancestral promise, transforming individual experience into communal covenant. The burning bush thus establishes all subsequent revelation. God who sees suffering, Raiti et Oni Ami, who hears cry, Shamati et Zaakato, who knows, Veyadati et Makovav, and who descends to deliver, Vayered Lehatzilo, the staff and the serpent, signs of authority. Moses' objections to his calling, Exodus 3:1-4-17, reveal the prophet's necessary transformation from self-doubt to authorized agency. His 5 objections, who am I? What is your name? They will not believe me. I am not eloquent. Send someone else. are met by divine responses that progressively equip him. The Mofetim, signs, wonders of the staff snake, Mathe becoming Nakash, the leprous hand, Yad Metzorat, and the Nile to blood demonstration establish Moses' authority through transformation of natural elements. The Hebrew Hazak V'ematz, be strong and courageous, becomes the charge to leadership. The staff, Mate Elohim, staff of God, becomes the instrument of wonder, striking the Nile, dividing the sea, bringing water from rock. Aaron, as Navi, spokesman, prophet, to Moses introduces the pattern of prophetic partnership, later continued in Joshua and the elders. The transformation of staff to serpent and back echoes Egyptian magical practice. Moses' serpent swallows those of Pharaoh's magicians while demonstrating superior power. The leprous hand sign appearing and healing within Moses' garment suggests the prophet's body itself becomes medium of divine communication. These signs are not mere authentication, but pedagogical theater. They train Moses in the use of power. They prepare Israel for the impossible. They establish the pattern of Yad Shazaka, Uz Roa Netuya, mighty hand and outstretched arm, that will characterize the Exodus. The reluctant prophet, transformed by encounter and equipped by signs, becomes the Eved Yahweh, servant of Yahweh, who will mediate between divine and human, between promise and fulfillment. The 10 plagues, priestly and Yahwist sources. Source criticism reveals multiple plague traditions, woven together in Exodus 7. 1-2. The Yahwist source emphasizes the staff, Moses' personal agency and naturalistic elements. Frogs from Nile, hail from sky. The priestly source emphasizes Aaron's role, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart as divine plan and cosmic scope, distinction between Israel and Egypt. The Lila as protective darkness. The Elohist contribution appears in the plague announcements and certain dialogue elements. The final redaction creates a narrative of escalating intensity. 3 sets of 3 plagues, culminating in the death of the firstborn. The first plague set, blood, frogs, lice gnats, affects all Egyptians. The second set, flies, swarm, pestilence, boils, distinguishes Goshen. The third set, hail, locusts, darkness, death, brings total destruction. The Hebrew Makkah, plague stroke, and Negev, affliction, describe divine punishment, while Ot, sign, and Mofet, wonder, emphasize revelatory purpose. The magicians, Chartamei Mitzrayim, progressive failure, reproducing blood and frogs, unable to produce lice, admitting this is the finger of God, demonstrates Yahweh's power over Egyptian chokmah. Wisdom. The plague narrative serves multiple functions: etiological, explaining Passover customs; polemical, defeating Egypt's gods; didactic, teaching Israel Yahweh's power; and theological, demonstrating divine sovereignty through history. The final form preserves these layers while creating coherent narrative. The God of Israel defeats the greatest power on earth, not through human might, but through davar, word, and mofet, wonder, establishing the pattern of redemption that will define Israel's identity. The hard heart of Pharaoh, free will and predestination. The hardening of Pharaoh's heart, Hikbid Hichbadi Chazakti et Lev Paro, presents the Exodus narrative's most profound theological challenge: the relationship between divine sovereignty and human responsibility. Exodus presents 3 distinct hardening patterns. Pharaoh hardens his own heart, Exodus 8:11, 8:28, 9:34. Pharaoh's heart is strengthened, Exodus 7:13, 8:15. and Yahweh hardens Pharaoh's heart. Exodus 9:12, 10, 1, 10:20, 10:27, 11:10, 14, 4:14, 8, 14, 17. The progression suggests initial self-hardening confirmed by divine action, or alternatively, the hardening is necessary for the full demonstration of divine power. The Hebrew terms distinguish hikbid, made heavy, associated with Egyptian kavod concept of heart as seat of intellect/emotion, chazak, strengthened, made firm, and hitchbati, I made heavy. The theological stakes are immense. If Yahweh hardens Pharaoh, how can Pharaoh be punished? If Pharaoh chooses, how is Yahweh's plan assured? The rabbis resolve this through careful distinction. Pharaoh had sufficient free will to repent until the fifth plague, pestilence, after which his choices confirmed his character and divine hardening executed justice. Maimonides, Guide 248, argued that all divine hardening is really description of consequence. Pharaoh's own choices made him unable to choose otherwise. Modern philosophical readings, Harry Frankfurt's Concept of Will, Eleanor Stump's Non-Coercive Determination, engage the text anew. The narrative's own resolution emphasizes kavod, glory, honor. I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. Exodus 9:16, quoting Romans 9:17. The hardening thus serves universal revelation. Through Pharaoh's resistance, Yahweh's power becomes known to all nations. The death of the firstborn, judgment and protection. The 10th plague, Makat Bishorot, represents the Exodus narrative's climax. Divine judgment executed against Egypt's future while Israel is protected through covenantal marking. Exodus 1:1. 1:2 describes the announcement. About midnight, I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the slave girl, and all the firstborn of the cattle. 11:4-5. The Hebrew Bekor, firstborn, carries significance beyond birth order. The Bekor represents strength, inheritance, continuity. The plague's scope, human and animal, royal and slave, demonstrates tzedek, justice, without mazva, distinction of persons, while the distinction between Israel and Egypt demonstrates Brit, covenant, as protective boundary. The Korban Pesach, Passover sacrifice, provides the mechanism of protection. Blood on doorposts and lintel as ot, sign for the mashchit, destroyer to Pesach, Passover protect. The Hebrew dam, blood, here functions apotropiacally, repelling destructive force, while anticipating Sinai Covenant's blood application. Exodus 24:8. The death of Egypt's firstborn parallels Israel's salvation. Egypt's loss becomes Israel's gain. Sorrow becomes joy. Death becomes life. The theological problem, collective punishment, including innocent children, troubled ancient and modern interpreters. The rabbis emphasized Pharaoh's own decree against Israelite children, Exodus 1:22. Medieval commentators noted Egyptian complicity in oppression. Modern theologians engaged the ethics of divine violence. The narrative's own frame emphasizes Yad Chazaka, mighty hand, and Shofet, judge. Yahweh executes justice against oppressive power, not arbitrary cruelty. The firstborn plague establishes the pattern of Geulah, redemption, through dam, blood, and Brit, covenant. The theology that will develop through Israel's history toward ultimate restoration. The Exodus night emergency and emergence. The night of departure, Leil Shimurim, night of vigil/watch, Exodus 12:42, compresses centuries of slavery into hours of urgent liberation. Exodus 12:3-3, 4:2 describes the Egyptians pressing Israel to leave. Kiamru, for they said, "We are all dead." The Israelites taking silver and gold vessels and clothing, fulfilling Genesis 15:14's promise. The Chipazon, haste, of unleavened dough. The Erev, evening departure. The Mezuzot, doorposts marked with blood. The Sheret, remnant of 600,000 men plus women and children, and mixed multitude, Erav. The Hebrew Chipazon captures the emergency. No time for dough to rise, no time for preparation. Only immediate response to divine command. The matzah, unleavened bread, thus becomes dual symbol. Poverty, bread of affliction, lechem oni, Deuteronomy 16:3. And freedom, bread of haste. The Erev Rav, mixed multitude, who join the Exodus, suggests the universal scope of liberation. Not Israel alone, but all who recognize Yahweh's power. The silver and gold, taken from Egyptians, later used for tabernacle construction, transforms oppression's profit into sanctuary's beauty. The Chamushim, armed fivefold organized, departure suggesting military readiness despite the miracle. The night of vigil becomes, in rabbinic tradition, the night when redemption is possible. The Messiah will arrive on Passover Eve, the night when the Shekinah watches with Israel. The emergency of emergence, sudden, unplanned, requiring immediate trust, establishes the pattern of faith. Not comprehension before commitment, but commitment leading to understanding. Not preparation before action, but action in response to call. The pillar of cloud and fire, divine guidance. The journey from Egypt to Sinai requires guidance through unknown territory, provided by the Amud Hianan, pillar of cloud by day, and Amud Hash, pillar of fire by night. Exodus 13:2-1-2-2. This visible Shekinah, presence, serves multiple functions. Navigation, leading the way. Protection, positioned between Israel and Egyptian army at the sea. Communication, associated with divine speech. And presence, visible sign of accompaniment. The Hebrew Amud, pillar/column, suggests stability and uprightness, while Anan, cloud, and Esh, fire, combine theophanic elements from Sinai revelation. The cloud's mobility, moving when Israel should move, resting when Israel should camp, establishes the pattern of Masa, journeying, and Machane, encamping, that structures the wilderness narrative. The pillar's presence at the sea crossing, Exodus 14:1-9-20, moving behind Israel to separate them from Egypt, demonstrates protective function. The cloud brought darkness to the Egyptians, but gave light to the Israelites. The Hebrew Vilo Karav Ze El Ze, neither came near the other all night, establishes the boundary between oppression and freedom, between old life and new. The pillar's disappearance after Sinai, replaced by the tabernacle's cloud, suggests transitional function, visible guidance necessary for emergence, internalized presence sufficient for maturity. The rabbis developed elaborate interpretations. The cloud leveled mountains, killed snakes and scorpions, illuminated the camp, provided water and manna. These expansions recognized the pillar's significance, divine presence made visible, guidance made tangible, the invisible God providing visible sign for a people learning trust. The Song of the Sea, ancient poetry and theology, Exodus 15:1. 1:8, the Shirat Hayam, Song of the Sea, stands as the Hebrew Bible's oldest preserved poetry and its most concentrated theological statement about divine warriorhood and salvation. The song's archaic Hebrew, Canaanite parallels, and poetic structure suggest composition near the events described, or near the tradition's origin. The Hebrew as Yashir, then he sang, introduces the victory hymn, with Shira, song, becoming in Jewish tradition the archetype of redemption celebration. The poem's structure moves from Yahweh's action, verses 1, 5, to enemy reaction, 6, 8, to Israel's arrival at sanctuary, 9, 1, 3, to enemy nations' fear, 1, 4, 1, 6, to Israel's settlement, 1, 1, 8, the theological core, Yahweh as Ish Milchama, man of war, Gibor, hero, Adonai Lord/Master, Sur, rock, El God, Kana, possessor/acquirer of sanctuary. The Hebrew Yemiyinka Yahweh, your right hand, Yahweh, personifies divine power. Nora Tehilot, awesome in praises, establishes the pattern of Zimra, song, as response to Yeshua, salvation. The poem's climax, Tivnei Mikdash, you will bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your inheritance, the place you made for your dwelling, the sanctuary, Lord, your hands established, anticipates Sinai and Jerusalem, connecting sea crossing to ultimate goal. The Shirat Hayam becomes liturgically central, daily recitation in Jewish morning prayer, Pesukei de Zimra, the Haftarah for the seventh day of Passover. Miriam's response, verse 21, with Toph, timbrel, and Mako, dance, establishes women's leadership in celebration. The song's enduring power lies in its combination of particular victory over Pharaoh, with universal scope, all nations hearing and fearing, of historical event with cosmic significance, of past redemption with future hope. Miriam the prophetess, women's leadership. Miriam, possibly from Mar, bitter, or Yom Si/day, emerges in Exodus 15, 2:0, 2:1 as Henevia, the prophetess, sister of Aaron, leading women in Toph, timbrels, and Makal dance, responding to the men's song with her own. This brief passage preserves crucial evidence of women's religious leadership in ancient Israel. The Hebrew Neviah, prophetess, appears rarely. Deborah, Judges 4. Huldah, 2 Kings 22. Noadiah, Nehemiah 6. And here Miriam. The title suggests authorized spokesperson for the divine, not merely ecstatic experience. Miriam's earlier appearance, Exodus 2:4, 8, as guardian of the infant Moses, negotiating with Pharaoh's daughter, demonstrates courage and resourcefulness. The rabbis expanded her role. Miriam's bear Miriam that accompanied Israel through the wilderness. Her death in Numbers 20, the people's demand for water leading to Moses' sin. The punishment for her later rebellion against Moses, Numbers 12, leprosy and exclusion from camp, demonstrates the limits of challenge to established authority. Yet her 7-day exclusion is brief compared to permanent consequences for other rebels. The Song of the Sea's attribution to Miriam in some ancient versions suggests women's voices in Israel's foundational poetry. Modern feminist interpretation emphasizes the Exodus liberates women equally with men. Miriam's leadership is public and recognized. Women's celebration, timbrel, dance is essential to communal worship. The inclusion of the Erev Rav, mixed multitude, and Miriam's leadership together suggest the Exodus narrative's universal and egalitarian dimensions, often overshadowed by subsequent patriarchal interpretation, but recoverable through careful reading. Jethro and governance. Wisdom from Midian. Exodus 18 presents Jethro, His Excellence, priest of Midian and Moses' father-in-law, offering organizational wisdom that transforms Israelite governance. The narrative's placement, after Sinai in narrative sequence but before Sinai in the received text, suggests thematic connection. Law requires administration. Revelation requires implementation. Jethro observes Moses judging Shofet, the people from morning to evening, asks, "Why do you sit alone? Lama ata yoshev levatka," and proposes hierarchical delegation. Sarim, chiefs officers of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, judging davar, hey Elohim, small matters, while Moses handles davar agadol, great matters. The Hebrew chokmah, wisdom and bina, understanding that Jethro claims to share are yada, known by all nations. This is practical wisdom, not unique revelation. Moses' acceptance, Vayishma Moshe, and Moses listened heard, demonstrates prophetic humility. The one who speaks with God learns from human experience. The organizational structure parallels other ancient Near Eastern administrative systems, suggesting Israel's adaptation of common wisdom. The theological significance. Torah requires minshar, governance. Revelation needs administration. Spirituality demands organization. The rabbis emphasized Jethro's conversion, Vayichat Yitro, and Jethro rejoiced/became Jewish, Exodus 18:9, making him the paradigm of Ger Tzedek, righteous convert. Modern organizational theory recognizes Jethro's principle. Effective leadership requires delegation. Sustainable systems require distributed authority. Charisma must be institutionalized. The Jethro narrative thus stands as the Exodus account's acknowledgement that liberation is not merely physical departure, but social